Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Welcome to this EDI webinar. Thank you for joining us today. I am Ana Heredia. I am the chair of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee of the European Association of Scientific Editors. I will be presenting this webinar today. And we are going to give a few more minutes for people to join. So we will start soon. We have people joining in the chat, people from Croatia, from the UK. I am here in Brazil. Nice to see everyone joining. So welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this EASE webinar presented by the EASE Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee and the Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion in Scholarly Communications, C4DISC. So EASE, EASE as an international community of editors from diverse backgrounds, linguistic traditions, and professional experience is committed to promoting a more diverse, a more diverse, equal and inclusive scholarly publishing. The EDI Committee has been working to increase awareness and offer support to the editors in their journey, creating material, sharing resources, and promoting spaces of reflection and discussion like this webinar. Today, we will share the results of a recent EASE survey carried out with editors and use them as the source for proposing our next actions. We want to understand where you are in your EDI journey and what EASE can do for you. I'm here with Charoula Tzanakou and Kate Wilson, my colleagues at the committee, and Amy Beisel from C4DISC, who will share the preliminary results of a survey C4DISC recently conducted on EDI in scholarly communications workplace, and we will then have both results to have material to think. So then we'll have a time to discuss the survey's finding and potential next steps. So for the agenda today, we will start with a poll to understand where you are on your EDI journey. Then we will share with you a little bit of the EDI strategy and the idea behind the survey. Then Kate Wilson will relay me and present the results of our survey. Then Amy Beisel from C4DISC will present the preliminary results of the surveys. The survey they took about the EDI in workplaces. And then we'll have Charoula Tzanakou for the discussion around the questions raised by the survey results. And then I will wrap up with some key actions and resources to help you move forward. So to begin with, I would like to invite you to answer a poll that will appear to you in your screen. We had a little bit of a technical problem, so I will ask you to choose one of the 5 options that are presented to you. The first, so the question is, thinking about your journal or your organization, where are you in your EDI journey? Stage 1, are you aware? So EDI is new to my journal organization, and we are just becoming aware of its importance for scholarly publishing. So clearly, this option would be, we haven't done anything yet, but we are aware. So if you, and you have in your screen choice 1, choice 2, please just check choice 1 of one of the 5 options you have. So stage 2 would be compliant. EDI in my journal or organization is focused sorry, I can't move the poll, so I'm reading to you. ADI in my journal or organization is focused on compliance with legal requirements. This would be stage 2. Would mean we have started to consider it and made some small step, but still at the beginning. Stage 3 would be a tactical stage. ADI has been connected to initiatives and outcomes in pockets of the journal or the organization. So, for example, typically if a journal has a published policy statement regarding ADI. Stage 4 is integrated, meaning that ADI is part of everything we do as a journal or an organization. We have both internal and external efforts on ADI. This means that you have several ADI initiatives in progress. And the last stage would be the sustainable stage, where ADI efforts are best in class and remain strong over time through our efforts to continuously improve and evolve. So this means that your organization or your journal are leader in this field. So I don't know if everybody had the chance to vote and we could have an idea of the results. Okay, the first one, 100%. So we have, it's complicated to interpret this. Can someone step in?
Yes, so because people selected in both choice 1 and 2, you need to combine them. So 4 people have selected choice 1. So 4 people are aware but haven't done very much yet. 4 people have selected choice 2 as choice 2 compliant. 8 people choice 3 tactical. 9 people integrated. And 3 people sustainable. So I'll put those results in the chat in a sec.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like integrated, the stage 4 or stage 3 seem to be
the highest.
The highest, yeah. All right, so not that bad. All right. Thank you so much for participating. So I'll just have a little talk about the EASE ADI strategy, about the mission, the objectives, and also tell you a little bit of the context for the survey. So the mission of the EDI committee is to ensure EASE is a socially just community that welcomes, values, and celebrates all who seek to contribute to its mission, and that this statement is owned at the highest level within the EASE Association. Another mission is to work with our members and industry partners to support ADI in scholarly communications, editing, and publishing, and to design, implement, and support initiatives created to reduce bias within the publishing workforce and editorial processes, and to design, implement, and support initiatives created to increase diversity in research participants and transparency in related research reporting. In terms of the ADI of the committee objectives, one of the objectives is to understand the diversity of the EASE leadership and membership as a starting point for measuring improvements. Another objective is to identify potential collaborators, for example, partners in key existing initiatives, like what we are doing typically today, working together with C4DISC and also other partnerships we already have. Another objective is to monitor and evaluate ADI policies and processes of other organizations to identify good practice and case studies, to produce guidelines detailing good practice for editors and authors, to advocate for ADI awareness amongst EASE members and the broader community and promote good practice in editing and publishing, and to develop or link out to training resources. So in this frame, the objectives of the survey, of the surveys we are going to present the results today, were to understand the opinion of our community about the importance of ADI to scientific journals and organizations, to understand where our community is in terms of EDI awareness and endorsement or adoption in journals and organizations, to understand also the main barriers to the adoption of EDI policies and practices in journals and organizations, and finally to understand what additional support EAS could provide to help editors in their EDI journey. So with no further delay, I will leave you with my colleague, Kate Wilson, who will talk about who go through the results of the survey. Up to you, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, my name is Kate Wilson. I'm a publisher at Elsevier, and I am a member of the EAS EDI Committee. So first I'm going to cover who the survey was sent to. So it was sent to 1,326 people, 325 emails bounced, 279 didn't open the email, and 674 people opened it. 223 people responded to the survey, and they were given two options: to respond on behalf of a journal, which is 129 people, or to respond on behalf of an organization, and that was 103 people. But not everybody answered all the questions, and some questions did also have multiple response options. Next slide, please. So this is the respondent survey. So the majority of who are we talking to and how long have they been in publishing? So the majority of the respondents, around 40%, undertake a journal editor-in-chief, deputy editor, scientific editor, section editor, or similar work. And most people have been in academic publishing for between 10 and 20 years. Next slide, please. So when asked about their organization or journal's EDI policy, and whether their organization had an EDI policy, 54 people answered this question, with 30% having a policy. 91 people answered whether their journal had an EDI policy, and only 29% did have one at the journal level. Next slide, please. So this is about the journals or organization or EDI. So when asked how important EDI was to the journal organization, 111 people answered this question. 49% thought it was very important, 23% important, 17% considered it, 6% don't find it very important, and 5% were unsure. When asked if someone at their organizational journal had responsibility for EDI, 32% had somebody that was responsible, 50% had nobody, 8% were unsure, and for 10% of the respondents, this wasn't applicable. Next. Oh, and 70% of the respondents felt confident about holding a conversation about EDI with their colleagues and stakeholders. So next slide, please. So we asked about the information that organizations and journals collect data on. Now, 111 people answered this question, and you could give more than one option in your answer. Over 1/3 of the respondents collect no information at all. Geography was the biggest, with 49% in regard to the information collected. Gender was at 37%, professional role at 29%, age at 14%, and income at 5%. An example of under other was career stage in regards to the type of information people collected. Next slide, please. So we also asked about the adoption of external EDI initiatives. Now for this, it's been split into organization and journal, so who the respondents are responding on behalf of. So we asked whether the respondents were aware of the sex and gender equity in research guidelines, also known as the SAGA guidelines. Now for SAGA, for the organization, there is little difference between the organization and journal. There is little difference between the respondents' types. The main difference is between those who replied no and those who were not sure. For organizations, 43% have embraced the SAGA principles but are not actually endorsed or adopted it formally. 15% have included it in their author instructions. 9% have endorsed it on the EAS website, and 15% aren't sure of SAGA, aren't aware of SAGA, and 22% aren't sure. In regards to people, those who are responding on behalf of their journal, 36% have adopted the SAGA principles but not actually endorsed or adopted it formally. 19% have included it in their author instructions. 8% have endorsed it on the EAS website. 25% aren't aware of SAGA, and 16% aren't sure. We also asked about whether their organization or journal were a signatory of the Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion in Scholarly Communication, also known as C4DISC. So here the results are quite different between organization and journals. So for regards to organization, 50% of the respondents aren't a signatory of C4DISC, and only 20% are, and 22% aren't sure. For journals, 69% of respondents aren't a signatory of C4DISC, 5% are, and 25% aren't sure. Now, we did also ask about any other external EDI initiatives and the respondents were aware of, and examples of other EDI initiatives respondents are involved in include the UK Committee of Research Integrity, the steering group members of the Joint Committee for Action on Inclusion and Diversity in Publishing, and working group member of the LGBTQ+A Cross-Publisher Collective, and the ICMTJE DEI Committee. Sorry, that was quite a mouthful. And next slide, please. So we also asked what additional EDI support requirements that the respondent thought that they would benefit from. So this was a multi-option option question, and 111 people answered this. So the top answer was have an example policy statement and guidelines at 76%. Examples of initiatives and case studies at 67%, resources to help the respondents' raise awareness was 58%, networking opportunities to discuss EDI with peers at 50%, support to identify an EDI mentor at 18%, and 5% of people responded other. Now, examples of other included HR training resources and staff time, and I think we could all benefit from extra time. And that concludes my section of the results. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you so much, Kate. I would like to invite Amy Beisel from C4DISC to share the results, the preliminary results of the workplace survey they carried out, and present a little bit of C4DISC. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, I'm Amy Beisel, a leadership coach in the publishing industry, and I'm based in Germany. Today, I'm representing the Coalition for Diversity and Inclusion in Scholarly Communications, or C4DISC, to discuss our workplace equity project. Many thanks to the EASE team for inviting C4DISC to join this important conversation. C4DISC was mentioned in the EASE survey and the results that we just looked at with Kate, so I'd like to take the opportunity to share who we are, the preliminary findings of a workplace survey that we recently completed, and then discuss together what some possible next steps will be. For those who aren't familiar with C4DISC, this coalition was launched in 2017. Our mission is to work across the industry with organizations and individuals to build equity, inclusion, diversity, and accessibility in scholarly communications. Our vision is a socially just community that welcomes, values, and celebrates all who seek to contribute to scholarly communications. Members of C4DISC include membership organizations that have signed the Joint Statement of Principles, and partners are for-profit and nonprofit organizations that contribute to C4DISC at gold, silver, and bronze levels. You can see many of our members and partners here. EASE is a signatory to the C4DISC Joint Statement of Principles. Next slide, please. A major focus at C4DISC has been equipping scholarly communications organizations and individuals with practical guidance and tools, for example, with toolkits on anti-racism and how to use inclusive language and images in scholarly communications. In the next few weeks, the newest toolkit will be published, which is very relevant for the EASE community, focusing on building diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in editorial roles and peer review. We look forward to collaborating with EASE on how this toolkit can be put to work. All of C4DISC's toolkits can be accessed from our website under Resources. We also want to highlight a resource created by the American Psychological Association that EASE members may find helpful: the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Toolkit for Journal Editors, which is available on their website. Next slide, please. Today, we want to share preliminary findings from C4DISC's 2023 Workplace Equity Survey. The report is still being finalized and will come out soon. So today we'll share some initial findings and emerging themes that are relevant alongside the EASE survey results that Kate shared. One important point to keep in mind about this survey is that it focuses on people's workplace culture and the lived experience of people working within the scholarly communications industry. Some other surveys and studies focus on whether publications and our publishing practices reflect the diversity of the research community more broadly. But the Workplace Equity Survey responses reflect our colleagues' experiences at work in scholarly communications. Our analysis considers dimensions such as gender, race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, caregiving status, ability, neurodiversity, and more. C4DISC conducted the first iteration of this survey in 2018 and again in 2023, so we can look at trends over time in many categories. Several new categories were added for the 2023 edition. Let's take a quick look at the demographics of survey respondents. We received 1,755 responses from across 6 continents, primarily North America and Europe. The survey was distributed widely through global and regional industry organizations. All respondents opted in to taking the survey, so it is indicative but not necessarily representative of the industry as a whole. As we know from other surveys, the scholarly communications workforce is predominantly female. In both 2018 and 2023, approximately 3/4 of survey respondents identified as women. In 2023, the survey provided a non-binary or gender diverse option and found that 4% of respondents identify in this way. Nearly 1/4 of respondents identify as LGBTQ+. Next slide, please. Other industry surveys have shown that our workforce is predominantly white, so it's no surprise to see this result in the Workplace Equity Survey too. In 2018, 81% of respondents identified as white, whereas in 2023, we saw greater representation from additional groups. While some of the gain in diversity could be real, our survey had a broader geographical reach and larger sample size in 2023, which could have had an impact on the results. In addition, approximately 1/4 of respondents identified themselves as disabled and/or neurodivergent. Next slide, please. 3/4 of respondents work at publishers, with the remaining working at publishing services companies, nonprofit organizations, and academic institutions or libraries. Notably for EASE members, over 1/3 of respondents are in editorial and production roles combined. Next slide, please. So while we are still finalizing our report on the Workplace Equity Survey, some key themes have emerged. First, employee satisfaction and recognition of employer commitments to diversity have increased. In 2018, 60% of survey respondents reported that their organizations had stated values about diversity. This figure rose to 89% in 2023. Job satisfaction has also increased substantially, from 50% of respondents in 2018 to 78% in 2023. And it tends to increase with career progression. But as we're going to see in the following themes, respondents make an important distinction between their organization's stated values and their actual practices. As one respondent who identifies as an Asian woman said, Work has a strong outward-facing commitment about DEI, but in practice, I don't see much meaningful change. There are many employee resource groups, ERGs, run by volunteer employees, which are not supported enough, and instead their results are used for the business's gain. Next slide, please. Second, not everyone experiences tangible improvements in workplace culture and workplace equity efforts. Respondents in some historically marginalized groups were twice as likely as other respondents to disagree that their employer is committed to advancing inclusion and equity. About 1/3 of disabled and neurodivergent, Black, and non-binary respondent groups disagreed that their employers are committed to creating an inclusive, equitable workplace. And while 81% of respondents overall stated that their workplace culture is supportive, those who agreed in lower numbers identified as Black, disabled, neurodivergent, multiracial, non-binary, or gender diverse. As one respondent who identifies as disabled and neurodivergent said, "I find that there is a lot of talk of diversity and inclusivity, but it is still left to individuals to really push if they need assistance and to carve out a space for themselves, and things are not accessible by default." In terms of advancement opportunities, 62% of men believe that everyone has equal opportunities for promotion, whereas that number drops to 50% of women and only 26% of non-binary and gender diverse respondents. Next slide, please. Third, inequities persist across the span of a career, and we need to take action to help people of all backgrounds progress in their careers. We learned that formal and informal mentorship has a measurable impact, but mentorship opportunity gaps persist by age group. About half of respondents reported having a mentor at some point in time, and 86% of them reported that the mentorship experience had a measurable impact on their professional growth. A higher proportion of men than women reported serving as a mentor, which is incongruous with the gender breakdown across all survey respondents, where only 21% identified as men and 72% as women. This finding partially reflects the higher proportions of women in the younger age groups who might have had fewer opportunities to be a mentor, along with a higher percentage of men reporting to be further in their career. Networking is also a common activity among respondents, with 86% having participated in networking activities. A higher proportion of white respondents reported networking at in-person conferences than respondents of color, whereas respondents of color were more likely to have networked within employee resource groups, or ERGs. ERGs may serve as a psychologically safer space for networking compared to broader industry conferences, although inequities may also exist in opportunities to attend conferences. Non-binary respondents were much more likely to report networking in virtual spaces than men or women, and much less likely to network at conferences. As one respondent who identifies as non-binary said, "Networking is tough when you're visibly different, not cisgender heterosexual, and the only one in a room. It is difficult to find mentors who understand your experience and particular barriers as a member of a marginalized community." Taken together, we can see that creating equitable and inclusive spaces for networking and mentoring is an important step in achieving diversity goals. In terms of career breaks, 27% of respondents reported that they took an extended leave from their career at some point in time, typically for parental or health reasons. Women were more likely to experience a negative impact on their career as a result of taking a career break than men or non-binary respondents. So supporting employees, particularly women who return from career breaks, is also an important dimension of achieving equity in the workplace. Next slide, please. Fourth, The survey indicates that there is much more to be done in our industry to create equitable and inclusive workspaces and to diversify our workforces. We found in both 2018 and 2023 that line managers have the most impact on an individual's experience of equity and inclusion in the workplace. Both organizational leaders and individual changemakers have roles to play here. As a respondent who identifies as Latinx said, it became clear to me throughout college, including during my internship with a scholarly publisher, that certain career paths require insider knowledge and guidance that I simply did not have. I think it is the responsibility of those within the industry to branch outward and provide support to those outside of it. Next slide, please. So what can we do about all of this? Here are some recommendations for organizations. First, assess or reassess where your organization or team is on its workplace equity journey. Create a workplace equity strategy to map out your progress long-term, perhaps through a combination of self-assessments, employee surveys or focus groups, and external indices. Second, set goals and align workplace equity initiatives to meet your goals. Design specific initiatives, then designate resources to ensure they succeed. Some goals may need periodic monitoring, like progress towards representation, while others may require in-depth assessment, like the outcomes of internal mentoring programs. Next, recognize and reward employees for their contributions to advancing equity in the workplace. Employees who are part of marginalized communities can face a burden to lead diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiatives that they should be benefiting from. It's important that employees are recognized and not overloaded with a charge to improve workplace equity without adequate resources and support. Finally, communicate your actions, including progress updates and course corrections, so that colleagues know what work is being done, what everyone is learning through this process, and what changes are really being made. Show how you're putting words into action. Next slide, please. On an individual level, your personal commitment is critical to showing up as an advocate and ally. Here are some recommendations. First, support colleagues early in their career through mentorship or networking. Effective mentorship programs can lead to more diverse management teams. You can help create formal mentorship programs and make mentorship part of your organization's culture, or just informally offer to mentor someone on your own. Also consider developing reverse mentoring opportunities so that those in historically privileged positions, such as white employees and those in leadership, can learn from those who have different life experiences. Individually, you can volunteer to serve as a mentor through industry organizations such as the Society for Scholarly Publishing, the STM Association, and the Association of Learned and Professional Society Publishers, or ALPSP. ALPSP is actually taking applications for mentors right now, and you can find more information on their website. I can say that from personal experience, these industry mentorship programs create meaningful and lasting professional relationships that benefit both mentors and mentees. Next, you can contribute to employee resource groups. You can join an existing ERG in your organization, or perhaps offer to start one. Work within and alongside these groups to actively support and advocate for historically marginalized groups as a community member or ally. Level up your everyday allyship actions. Consider how you actively listen, identify and address social segregation, interrupt racism and other discriminatory practices, respond to criticism, seek out information and resources, and contribute to a culture of appreciation, learning, and growth in your organization. Consider joining a C4 DISC community of practice to discuss important topics and get ideas and feedback from others on the same journey. Also, be mindful of your use of inclusive language. According to the Linguistic Society of America, inclusive language acknowledges diversity, conveys respect to all people, is sensitive to differences, and promotes equal opportunities. You can find some specific examples and recommendations in the C4 DISC Toolkits for Equity on our website. So as you can see just in these initial survey findings, respondents from many different backgrounds have seen or heard a lot of nice statements about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, but they want concrete change. We all need to put our words into action and turn our good intentions into meaningful results, both as organizations and as individuals. We'll have a lot more data and recommendations to share in the C4 DISC Workplace Equity Report that will be coming out soon. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amy. This was very enlightening, and together with the results that Kate shared with us before, I think we have a nice base for a discussion. So I'll leave you all with Charoula Tzanakou, who will discuss and animate our debate. So please feel free to participate through the chat. Yes, Charoula, it's up to you.
Thank you, Anna. Hi. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. My name is Charoula Tzanakou. I'm also part of the EDI Committee. And we have actually developed a few questions for you to discuss around the survey results and what you thought. But of course, we can go beyond the questions if you have any particular burning question on the things that were presented, and feel free to use the chat, or you can also unmute your microphone and talk to us. So we have some questions, as I said, and you can see them on the slides. But if you have any burning questions, we can always go beyond script. So one of the things we wanted to gauge is really to what has been your first impressions from the survey results? Was it something that surprised you, something that you didn't expect, or was everything kind of what you were expecting to see? Hasib, do you mean the EASE survey or the C4 DISC survey? Oh, the C4 DISC. Amy?
Hi, Hasib. Thank you for your questions. And I'll be speaking off the top of my head here. There will be a lot more to say around limitations, data, action items, et cetera, once the report comes out. So just to preview, I think. One thing I mentioned is that this was really an opt-in survey, and so truly we're only getting information from people who received the survey and were willing to complete it. So I think it's important to say that it's not that this survey represents the current state of the publishing industry as a whole in an exhaustive way that included sampling or whatnot, but that it was an opt-in effort. So I do think that it is indicative, but we do need to be, I think, thoughtful about that data. We did work to distribute the survey more broadly. We hope to do the survey again in 5 years and, hope to be able to distribute it even further there. But there's an understanding that there may be some discrepancies between regions, for example, in terms of who received access to the survey or was able or willing to complete it. I think there are some limitations that we could point to in the data collection as well. I think everyone on this call is probably aware that there are many different boxes that folks could check to describe themselves. And when we're sending out a survey, we're necessarily limiting those. And I think Kate is getting to this in her question as well. So for example, we use the term Asian. That is a very broad we're painting with a very broad brush there. And so I think there's a lot more that we can do to understand more specifically who we're talking about for each of these questions. And I'm just happy to respond to Kate quickly too. There will be crosstabs and further analysis in the report. We'll be releasing an executive summary first, which does have a lot of great information and high-level findings. And then later on, more and more data analysis will be coming out. So I'm sure we'll be able to speak to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks for picking up the question from the chat as well. Kate, do you want to say a bit about EDI's survey?
So we didn't look at the breakdown of ethnicity or even a gender. We just looked at whether because we wanted to see where our members were in terms of their EDI journey. We've more focused on, whether people identified whether they're answering on behalf of their journal or their organization. So we didn't ask those questions because I think it's always important in the EDI arena to only ask questions if you really need to know that information, and to not ask. And although, it would have been interesting to know, but because our focus was only on the roles of the people, we didn't ask about ethnicity or gender. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. And I think there's also a comment around from Zoe about knowing the female bias in publishing. There was surprise around to see how few men responded. I think that's for you, Amy, I suppose. Or
yeah, I can't say whether that is again a breakdown in who chose to respond versus the actual breakdown in publishing, but I can say that our the breakdowns that we saw by gender between 2018 and 2023 were consistent. So I think that's an important indication of those findings. And to say that, as we have seen in other surveys and studies, that the workforce in publishing does skew towards women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think John has a hand raised. John, would you like to come in?
Yes, please. Hello, Charoula. Well done, everyone. It's great to see these responses. I just wanted to flag a paper that should be published in European Science Editing very soon, where some researchers at University College London, led by Patrizia Pezzoli, worked with me, and we surveyed editors of mental health journals, so psychiatry and more general mental health. The survey was done, I think, 2022. It's taken quite a long time to write up the results, but we had about 70 responses, and we asked them 3 things. So we were asking attitudes to awareness of and knowledge for sex and gender reporting, race and ethnicity reporting, and then lived experience. So people with mental disabilities or mental illness problems contributing to their journals. And it was quite interesting because basically sex and gender, we had quite good awareness, race and ethnicity, not too bad. And then the lived experience contributions were well down. So that paper, it's been peer reviewed and I think it's been revised. So it should be out very soon in European Science Editing. So all these editors, all these members, I think, get an alert, or it'll be in the newsletter or something, but it's good additional data. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, it's great. We will keep an eye for this then, and we'll make sure that it is communicated to the community. We also had another question in relation to EDI's survey about why do you think there's such a discrepancy between the people who are feeling that EDI is important, but then there was relatively little emphasis and resources of the organization actually putting on EDI. And we were wondering whether people in the call had any ideas and why, what is stopping and what are the challenges, I suppose, in putting resources onto EDI. Money, I think I can see from the chat. So limited resources and financial resources not being committed to EDI? Is that across the board? Are there other? Yes, so I can see from the chat that they're talking about, of course, money, but also about resources or people's time and development also for people towards EDI understandings and skills. Lack of awareness at the organization level or lack of communication with their journal editors. So there seem to be quite a few challenges that we want to take into account, also in relation to next steps and what we could do at EASE to help. Indeed, thank you, Erin. It might be performative organizations to say they believe in EDI but don't put action behind it. I actually work a lot on EDI in higher education institutions. This is always the case. It's quite performative and it's quite superficial, I would say, in a box-ticking exercise. There's a leaning towards integrating EDI into everyone's day-to-day work rather than budgeting for dedicated resource professional work in this area. Thanks, Zoe. One of the things we're finding is actually the lack of expertise in some cases and how this can actually make it very difficult for people who are being placed to have the EDI burden without actually having the skills or the experience to actually act on it and advance. Thank you. I will go to the next question, which is really about if you were to do a future iteration of the survey, I suppose also for C4DISC, but also for us at EASE, what is missing from the survey that we really like to know more about? I suppose one was in relation to ethnicity and maybe more breakdowns in relation to intersectional, potentially how intersectionality is being seen at editorial and publishing sector. Is there anything else that is missing from the survey that we really like to know about that we can include in future surveys? Nothing? Oh, we've covered everything. That's amazing. I usually believe that they're not perfect surveys, but how organizations are measuring their efforts. Yes, I would like to know that. That's a great point. We're hearing a lot about sustainability in scholarly publishing. Do the presenters think the recent discussions on SDGs have any impact on EDI movement? Amy, Kate, would you like to address that?
I'm less conversant in the SDGs, to be honest, and so I would love to hear if someone else has some thoughts on this. I know, Mary, if you don't mind, you had mentioned some ideas when we were meeting yesterday.
I can only comment from kind of my personal perspective at my publisher, and I think it's a struggle, I think, to kind of integrate SDGs within the EDI. I think it's not always it's not always clear how they kind of drive each other or connected, and we can't, although we know they are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in the SDGs, you know, you do have, I think, SDG 4 about gender equality, and there is also an SDG on inequalities in general. So this could be kind of interrelated, I suppose, with what we're doing at the EASE, you know, and also at the publishing sector more widely.
I did have one thing that I would like to know more about, which was what people's biggest barriers are when they are trying to kind of do EDI activity at their organization and journal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Should I give a couple more seconds to address Kate's question about the biggest barrier? I'm wondering how many would say money again, or okay, so I think we'll have to move on because I'm mindful of time. So we want to understand a bit more about what can EDIs do to support you in advancing EDI in your workplace and activity. And I think we have quite a few already in the chat around, what we could do more. I saw some of the comments from Joan and from other participants. And I'm going to skip the last question so I can give the floor back to Anna to close the webinar. But thank you very much for your contribution, also for your comments in the chat and also the responses from the presenters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charoula. Thank you so much. There is just not to ignore, Shelley made a comment, and we are considering that is this to know more from people who may not be supportive of ADI policies. We are thinking about that as well. Thank you for pointing this out. So just to finish, just to leave you with our ideas or our actions based on the survey results at EASE. We will like to develop a slide deck to help editors talk about what ADI is, why it is important, and what it means for those in scientific publishing, to be able to talk about this with colleagues, editorial boards, publishers, funders, councils, etc. We also will list and link or keep it up to date on the ADI's website, case studies of successful initiatives to inspire. We are going to we plan to collect video testimonials from people across the publishing community, highlighting the importance of ADI in the sector and how everyone can be engaged and take responsibility. And this is a call for action, a call for volunteering. Participate in the C4DIS communities of practice, peer-to-peer discussions, and resource sharing on community requested topics. So sign up and join us in this discussion. I would like to thank you in the name of EASE for being with us today, and thank Amy from C4DISC and Kate and Charoula for being with us today. We hope this meeting was useful. I would like to leave you with Duncan, who will share some upcoming news with you. Go ahead, Duncan. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for that fantastic, fascinating presentation. I have to admit, I hadn't dug through some of the C4DISC, all the resources in quite as much detail. So that's actually been very helpful, as well as the rest of the presentation and results. So thanks very much for that. I just wanted to take just 1 minute at the end of the session to mention the forthcoming EASE editorial school for journal editors, which may be of interest to anyone here, or colleagues or journal editors that you might want to put anyone on to. It's a 4-part modular training course that starts on the 3rd of April. The first module will be with EASE Vice President Eva Grabarich-Andonovsky on the structure of journals and how to manage them, looking at some of the core roles required, what the tasks needed to run a journal, editorial board positions, and how to support and motivate your editorial board. The second module will be with Joan Marsh, who's also with us today, on Wednesday the 10th of April, on publication ethics for journals, specifically how to manage cases. We're all quite familiar with ethics, but when it actually comes to dealing with a case, it can be very tricky to actually conclude it. So this is going to give some real pro tips on how to manage ethical cases. The third module will be on peer review and production processes with Eliza De Ranieri. I'm not sure if she's here today. Hello, if she is. On understanding different workflows for journals, optimizing workflows, maybe understanding what different journal management systems can do and different production processes can do for your journals. how to avoid problems in peer review and improve the quality of life for editors, authors, and reviewers, everyone involved in the peer review process. And the fourth module is me talking about promotion and indexing, increasing the presence and visibility and community impact of journals, as well as traditional citation metrics and getting journals indexed into the big databases and indexing systems and what all of that can mean for journals. So they're the first 4 modules. There are, in fact, 8 modules to the entire course as it is at the moment, but in April we'll just be running the first 4. All the information, registration details are on the EASE website, and we hope to see many of you registering and at these training course. We've already got quite a few registrations, but we look forward to more people signing up before it starts. So yeah, thanks for letting me crash your session.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see you soon. Thank you for being here with us today, and I hope that the webinar was useful. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye. Have a great day.